Good afternoon, everyone. Call to order this regular meeting of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District for Thursday, April 16th, 2026. The TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nations communities across our vast regional district. Today, we are located on the Tecumloops to Secwepemc territory, situated within the unceded ancestral lands of the Secwepemc Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership we have with Tecumloops to Secwepemc, and we respect the territory and land on which we gather today. I'm now going to move that we go into a closed meeting under Community Charter Sections 91C, Labor Relations or Other Employee Relations, and 91I, Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. Could I have a seconder? Director Ranta, thank you. All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. We'll just wait a moment, and Director Blackwell will be joining us online from Zoomland. Welcome back, everyone, to this regular meeting of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District for Thursday, April 16th, 2026. We are moving on to the chair's announcements. We have three alternate directors here today. We have alternate director Noni McCann here for Director O'Connor. We have a familiar face. We have alternate director Bill Kershaw for Director Hayward. And another familiar face, we have alternate director Nancy Beppel for Director O'Reilly. Director O'Toole is unable to be here, and his alternate could not be here either. So, library update. We have One Book, One Community returning to the Thompson-Nicola Regional Library. This year, readers across the TNRD are invited to read Always Pack a Candle by BC author Marion McKinnon Crook. The program will feature an author tour. She will be visiting 6 of our community libraries. There will be a hands-on author workshop, and the event will conclude with an evening with Marion McKinnon Crook in Kamloops. We look forward to welcoming readers from May 6th to May 11th for a week of shared stories, conversation, and connection. Spring and summer programming is now live across all Thompson-Nicola Regional Library branches. We are pleased to offer a wide variety of programs for all ages, including the always popular Summer Reading Club, One Book, One Community program, and the return of One Book, One Summer for teen readers. We invite everyone to explore what is coming up and join us at your local library. Full program details can be found at tnrl.ca/calendar. The TNRD is pleased to host its first ever Repair Cafe on Saturday, April 25th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Chase Creekside Seniors Organization in partnership with the Chase Environmental Action Society. This free community event will feature volunteer repairers on site to help residents fix items such as clothing, small appliances, and household goods. The goal is to empower people to learn basic repair skills, extend the life of their belongings, and reduce the waste that is sent to the landfill. Building on this initiative, a second repair cafe focused on bicycle repair will take place in Clearwater on May 30th. In addition, 2 trunk sale events are planned for May 23rd in Clearwater and May 24th in Merritt. These events will give residents the opportunity to sell, swap, or donate items in an organized community garage sale setting, complete with light refreshments and live music. Upcoming meetings and events. May 14th, we have an Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting at 9 a.m., followed by a regular board meeting at 1:30 p.m. May 27th, there is an out-of-town education session, Chase and Sun Peaks. May 28th, the out-of-town education session this year is going to be in Chase and Sun Peaks. That is May 27th and 28th. Regular mail is in your blue folder, along with a copy of the TNRD annual report, hot off the presses. Don't smear the ink when you handle it. There is a Film in BC Thompson-Nicola lookbook. In the event that the fire alarm sounds or there's an emergency, please leave by the safest exit doors, either at the rear of the room, to the left, or the main entrance. Go down the staircase, exit the building, and assemble in the staff car parking lot at the rear of the Paramount Theatre. Do not run or use the elevators. If you have issues with mobility, please advise the corporate officer. And on a personal note, Vice Chair Smith sat in the agenda meeting yesterday with Corporate Officer Jeremiah and CIO Hildebrand and myself, because I have to leave here around 4, because tonight is opening night of the Winding Rivers Arts and Performance Society production of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I'm playing Mrs. Beaver. We don't have any understudies. And Mrs. Beaver goes on in the first 2 minutes of the play, so she would be missed by people who know the story. So anyway, I will be leaving here at 4 or shortly thereafter, and I will be leaving you in the more than capable hands of Vice Chair Smith in the event that I have to depart early. All right, so we have the minutes of the regular board meeting from March 26, 2026. Thank you. Are there any errors or omissions? Pardon me? Oh, Corporate Officer Jeremiah?
Thank you, Chair.
I forgot the additions, deletions to the agenda.
Thank you.
Do we have any additions to deletions from the agenda? No, we don't. All right, so see, I was right to miss it. No, I was not right to miss it. That was very wrong of me. Regular board meeting minutes, March 26th. We have them moved and seconded. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. All right, we have 3 delegations for our enjoyment and delectation this afternoon. The first one is from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food and the Ministry of Waterland and Resource Stewardship. I understand this is a two-hander. First up, we have here in person Sophie Michelson from Resource Stewardship Water Project Specialist. She will be presenting to us in person, and then she will be handing over to Emma Holmes, Regional Agrologist for the North Okanagan. So welcome, Sophie. That way.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. All right, is this the advance? Okay, the one that's worn off. All right, hello everyone. I'm Sophie Michelson. I work for Waterlands and Resource Stewardship. My title is Water Project Specialist, which is very, I always find it a weird one. More specifically, I am a regional drought coordinator, and I do a lot of work in low flows. So I'm here to talk about drought and water scarcity. And tied with that is also our snowpack bulletin. So that's the first photo we have here. And before I get into it, I just wanted to note the difference in the north and south of the percent of normal in this one. There we go. So we use the snowpack bulletin to kind of for early information on what flows through the summer we can hope for. So for provincially, we are at 92% of normal, which is up from March 1st, and even up from 79% of normal in April 1st. Specifically in the Thompson-Nicola region, we are below normal. We're at 84% of normal, but that kind of masks the basins. So the North Thompson is at 115% of normal, so that's looking really good. South Thompson is at 85% of normal, and then the Lower Thompson is at 51% of normal. So there are definitely concerns for the Lower Thompson. Also, I can't help but mention concerns in the Okanagan as well. So there's a strong regional divide with many basins experiencing either well below or well below normal snowpack. And it's useful to note that by April 1st, we've usually had about 97% of our annual snowpack accumulation. So we won't have any more, we likely won't have a significant increase in snowpack, but that's not to say that these percent of normals couldn't increase. So if we have a cool, rainy spring, the percent of normal can increase. We could have more snowpack sticking around. That's just a kind of the explanation, because I've seen 250% of normal in basins before in May. So The southern interior areas with below normal snowpack show early concerns for drought conditions, potentially amplifying into the spring and summer. My experience is also, it's tied to, we're looking at snowpack, but we're also thinking about the weather we're getting in the spring. Those two are very tied together. So if we continue to get warm weather and some like rain events in high elevations, that's going to increase the melt of the snowpack. I also wanted to touch on the changes to drought level setting. I think you guys heard about this last year. So going back to 2024, drought levels were based on conditions, impacts, and forecasts. Regionally, we had quite a bit of input and fine tuning of those levels. In 2025, the drought levels were changed to be set by River Forecast Center. Not so much regional input. It's based on current conditions only. So we're talking about snowpack, precipitation, and stream flow, 7-day stream flow average. And there's no forecasting anymore in the conditions. So we're going into 2026 now. We're using the same model for predicting drought levels, but we are doing pilots for water scarcity level setting in select watersheds. So in this area, we have a pilot going on in the Nicola. So we've divided the Nicola into 3 different areas: Upper Nicola, Lower Nicola, and cold water. And we're building out a framework to assess indicators, values, and then that will infer actions on a smaller scale. Like the basins previously used to be all of Nicola, and we've divided Nicola into 3 separate basins now, and we'll see how that goes this year. So for communication, we have the provincial drought plan, which is still pending an update for this year. The BC Drought Information Portal, where the drought levels and the water scarcity levels are going to be displayed. Early preparedness letters are being sent to water purveyors, municipalities, regional districts, and all water license holders. We have our regional technical drought working group, where we previously discussed drought levels. We will be more discussing conditions and actions to be taken for drought at these meetings. River Forecast Center does a great job putting out lots of bulletins. There'll be media releases. We attend EMCR hazard preparedness meetings and present out at those. And then we also have direct communication with water users in the area. So for the Thompson-Nicola region, we are below average, but for the 3 snow basins in this area, they are quite a spread from 115% of normal to 51% of normal. So I hesitate with that average. Early concerns for drought conditions potentially amplifying in the spring and summer, especially if this warm weather continues. If we continue to see minor snowmelt and flow increase in lower elevations with added precip may further increase flows, especially if we have a rain on snow event in the higher elevations. We are doing water scarcity framework pilot in the Nicola specifically, and we have lots of ongoing projects in the Salmon River watershed, Beaver Dam analog projects. Cattleman's has lots of projects going on. There's work to take users off the Salmon River onto Shuswap Lake. So no one big thing in the Salmon River, which I thought you guys might be interested in, but lots of small things going on, including like surface water, groundwater interaction models and things like that. So does anyone have any questions?
Director Houghton?
Thanks for coming. I just wanted to ask William Shaw to bring yourself and representation from the Agriculture Department here, and I appreciate you coming. How are we going to handle this? This seems like it's going to be a worse irrigation year than a couple of years ago, and I'll just use the Westwold area as an example. How are we communicating with the water users along the way? And I don't mean just Westwold, but everywhere. How are we going to work ourselves into an applicable situation so we don't have the NRO situation like we had in Westwold? Or what is your plans, or how are you handling this in the Westwold area and all the areas in the interior?
Yeah, so over the last few years, we have done a lot more communication measures. As you're aware, we did some public meetings in the past. We have increased the communications we do with water users. So we have started, I believe last year was the first year we started sending out early preparedness letters to inform people about the conditions. And we've also we have producer meetings in the Salmon River and Bissett to have specific specific conversations with them about the conditions.
That I was at one in Westwold earlier on a couple months ago or thereabouts that the Westwold Livestock Association put on, and some of the government representatives were there, and it sounds like BC Cattlemen's and others are doing some proactive stuff, working with you on some water holdback strategies in that Westwold Douglas Lake area to hold that water back so that it doesn't come in a flash flood all at one time. And I think those are the things that we're going to have to do throughout the province to hold this water back so it doesn't gush out in one big gush down and it's gone, and hold it back for whatever use that we need it. And the more of those projects that we can do, I think would be better off for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the hard part about the Salmon River. There's not one solution going on. So we have a big groundwater surface water model to understand the flows, because it is quite complex in the Westwold area. We have a beaver dam analog project that will be we'll be creating artificial beaver dams to increase water retention, and a lot of people use the word sponginess of the ecosystem. In Boline area, Cattlemen's has a lot of storage work and riparian work, because riparian health is also tied to that. And then not in the TNRD, but we're working on getting quite a few users off the lower Salmon River onto Shuswap Lake. So that is a very large project. We're only in the feasibility study right now. If it gets done in the next 10 years, I'll be so happy. But I'm hoping that all of these things combined can help with the water scarcity concerns in the Salmon River.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. And now we're going to hand over to Ministry of Agriculture and Food Regional Agrologist for the North Okanagan, Emma Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to share here. Thanks, Sophie. All right. Can you see my screen?
We can now.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my name is Emma Holmes. I'm regional agrologist with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. For the North Okanagan Shuswap, I sit in Vernon, and I'm here on behalf of William Shaw, who is out of the office. He sits in Kamloops. And so he and I work quite closely together on drought activities. Slide 2. So in terms of producer engagement and communication, last year we met weekly with producers in the Salmon River and the Bissett. They did appreciate that level of communication. Walrus attended those meetings, and we would also sometimes have representatives from DFO or other groups when there was like a question from producers or information to share. Because we met so much last year and a lot of their questions were answered, they have requested that we maybe scale it back this year. And so we're moving forward with monthly meetings in the Salmon River and bi-weekly meetings in Bissett, with the option to add ad hoc meetings, as issues come up and things need to be discussed on either side. Last year we had an agricultural water resource consultant, and we are moving towards having another one this year. The funding hasn't been confirmed, but hopefully working towards it. And that person was a liaison between producers and government, and did a lot of support on those longer term projects. So like repair and restoration and water storage and those sorts of things. So even though we won't have weekly drought update meetings, we're going to move forward with weekly drought update emails that will go out to the watershed to give them updates on what's happening. And then we also have monthly regional newsletters that contain a little bit more information and programs and different supports. I know Sophie kind of talked about some of these projects already. So through the Agricultural Water Infrastructure Program, which the Ministry of Agriculture kind of funds through IAF, so Investment Agricultural Foundation, there's a number of large-scale water storage projects happening kind of at different scale, like places. So some are at like, more feasibility, some are at engineering and design. And yeah, so there's the BC Cattlemen has one on the Boline, and then the Bassett Agricultural Sustainability Society is looking at some water storage in their region as well. And so yeah, working towards those larger scale storage of water that can be released at key times. And there's also funding within that program for watershed community planning. And so I know that has been applied for by both groups in the Salmon River and Bassett. We also have something called the Beneficial Management Practices Program that also runs through Investment Agriculture Foundation. And this provides funding directly to producers to support them in adopting beneficial management practices. The Thompson-Okanagan region had the highest number of successful BMP projects last year, and they got about 44% of completed projects, and they received 6.5 million in funding. This isn't just for water necessarily. It can be anything from like nutrient management, irrigation upgrades, water storage, biodiversity. So it's kind of across everything. We do know that there has been a lot of irrigation upgrades happening in the Salmon River. Across the province, we know that 6.3 million was provided for producers to upgrade their irrigation. And for water storage, so things like dugouts and rainwater harvesting, it was about 700,000 across the province. The Ministry of Agriculture has funded BC Cattlemen to do some repair and restoration in the Bassett and Salmon watersheds, so focusing on agricultural lands, restoring those riparian areas has been something that those producers in those meetings have been asking for the whole time they've been going on. So kind of moving forward with that and supporting the health of the riparian areas to support healthy fish, and yeah, maybe in some areas being able to slow down that water and retain it so it's not moving so flashy. So different kind of outcomes are hoped for through that. The kickoff meeting was yesterday, and hoping to get projects happening on the ground over the next 2 years. And then Sophie mentioned the Salmon Arm Irrigation Feasibility Project. So that was, it's kind of being led by a group of producers. And the feasibility project was funded through the Pacific Salmon Foundation. Pacific Salmon Foundation. And yeah, that would be incredible to get producers getting their irrigation off the Salmon River, but that one is definitely a long-term project that's just at the very beginning. That is all my updates. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? I'm going to look directly at Director Houghton. I don't know why. No. All right, no questions from Director Houghton. Anyone else have any questions? Alternate Director Kershaw.
Machine on. Here we go. Yeah, I have one question. And your watershed protection plans, where you're given it, most of what you've said here is in the Okanagan, but up the North Thompson, we have a irrigation dam on Leone Creek that is in the process of probably being deactivated or because of lack of funding. Is there funding to maintain that lake within the North Thompson? I know Robbie's here too, and he could probably fill me in, but I haven't been active into it. But this looks like the program would help the North Thompson Valley rather than just in the Okanagan too.
Oh yeah, this is, and sorry, this isn't funding just for the Okanagan, it's for the Thompson Okanagan. They're combined in the, like when I said that it's a provincial program, and I just said that Thompson Okanagan, those two regions together were 44% of projects. But about whether the agricultural watershed infrastructure program is a good fit for, it sounds like making sure a water source like a dam isn't removed. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but I will check in with William Shaw to understand. He will be the one who will know on that, and he can loop back. Who should he send his information to? Should it be to the whole, like to the board, or do you want?
To the board
Sure.
and Director Hayward,
Okay, okay,
because she's area of Laura Thompson, yes.
okay. Sure. I'll get him to do that.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much for your presentation here today.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is entirely online. This is coming up. We have Connected Communities, and we have a presentation from Executive Director Megan Chadwick of Connected Communities. Megan, the floor is yours. Megan Chadwick, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right. Thank you for offering to be a delegation today, and the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I have along with me Michael Jeffrey and Krista Zenz, who we work together in the connectivity division. Krista leads our data team, and Mike Jeffrey is an integral part of Network BC. He has been critical in sort of leading the Drive Study project. And so the two of them today are going to provide a presentation on the cellular drive study that we completed, and then there will be some time for questions at the end. And certainly if there is something burning in the middle of the presentation that you would like to ask a question on, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll try to address things as we can. Mike and Krista, do you want to provide a bit more of an introduction to the study?
Happy to. Hopefully you guys can see the presentation in the window. All right, perfect. Thank you, Director Blackwell, with a thumbs up there. So I'm Mike Jeffrey. I'm the Senior Director for Connectivity in Network BC. And essentially what we're going to do here is walk you through the cell drive study that we did, and I'll take it as quick as I can. Some of it's pretty dry. I would actually encourage questions through the presentation. Krista's going to jump in with a bit of a demo of the actual data a little bit later on. But by all means, as we walk through this, step in with questions, raise your hand, or just yell at me, and we'll try to answer them as we go through. I'm going to start off with a little bit of dry regulatory information, but the ministry actually submitted CRTC Part 1, it's called. So essentially what we were trying to do is get better data from the CRTC in terms of how cellular services are provided across the province and the country. We were asking for much greater granularity on the data provided for broadband and cellular services and the mapping, as well as facilities and transport information from the feds. We were looking to do that for planning, for funding, a whole bunch of different reasons. To make a long story very short, the process took like 18 to 24 months, and they came back and gave us 1 out of 3. So we weren't terribly happy about it, but they did give us the 250 road segment data, which is basically showing down the street from in front of your house what's running there, whether it's fiber or coax, so that we can start to identify in neighborhoods and on streets what's provided out there. The current method that I said and CRTC did prior to that is a 25-kilometer blob of it. So not very good in terms of granularity when we're trying to get details on what's in front of homes. They did deny the other two requests, citing largely confidential information from the provider's perspective. We are actually, as of yesterday, challenging this through the Privy Council with the feds, saying that the province should get the same level of data that the feds get. We'll see where that goes. But even just the street data is a big improvement for us. And the other thing I'll mention is the CRTC also has a consultation open right now to improve how mobile coverage is displayed by the carriers. So it's an open consultation. We've submitted to that, but it's open to the public, and we'll see where that one goes. On to the drive study and cellular. So, dating back to the last update of data we had up until very, very recently was 2022. This kind of is an indication as to where cellular coverage was across the province. We measure roughly 15,000 kilometers of road data across the province from an annual reporting perspective. So that's what we track. And that's what we define as primary, secondary, and major roads. So it's not every road in the province by any stretch, but it's a measurable amount that we can look at and see year to year what the change is. We had some pretty significant challenges in dealing with the data from a provincial and federal perspective, in that the carriers are required to report. They provided maps like what you see on telus.ca and Rogers, and it generally was quite optimistic about what their coverage looked like in the real world. So that when we would have to go and engage with communities and citizens across the province to talk about what cellular coverage was like, we'd hear very different stories in community and where we lived in terms of what cellular coverage was versus what the carriers actually provided. And this made it difficult in terms of negotiating with the cellular providers for funding new towers and talking to them about where problems exist. It was a lot of he said, she said. So in order to have that objective discussion between ourselves and communities and regional districts and the carriers, a decision was made about a year and a half ago to do a drive study across the province. So we engaged a third party, paid them to drive the 15,000 kilometers in vehicles. We put equipment in the vehicles that largely mimicked what a cell phone would look like if you're carrying in your hand driving down the highway. So we mimicked it to put the coverage such that you'd be in a vehicle. So not outdoor coverage where you're standing on the top of a hill, but realistic coverage as you're driving down the road. And we spent about 6 months with the provider doing the drives, gathering the data. It was all completed towards the end of September last year. You see there's a picture there what the vehicle looked like as it was outfitted and driving down the highway. But what this did is it gave us the drive data from across the province, so very real experience as to what was available on the road as the cars were traveling down. So we actually tested 4 carriers, so TELUS, Rogers, Bell, and Freedom across the province, although largely outside of the urban areas, and I mean the bigger urban areas, it's TELUS and Rogers. It actually measured signal level as the cars were driving down, so we got a very discrete level as to how many dB were collected as it was driving. We've done a little bit of work to convert that to more understandable or relatable information in terms of coverage, so it's not quite so technical. And we've mapped it across the province to show what the carriers' signal levels are actually like. So the new picture looks kind of like this. And like I said, Krista's going to do a demo for us in a couple minutes, walk us through the system. But largely on this map, you can't see the yellow, which is the middle level there. But it's green, yellow, and red. So green is you have an acceptable expectation of making a call. You can make a call, you can stream video, you can do data. It works like you would expect a cell phone to work where there's coverage. Yellow is kind of hit or miss. And red is no expectation of making a call. So that's the 3 levels we converted all the signals to so that it was a little bit more defined in terms of signal level and what you can expect as you're driving down the road. As Krista brings up the demo, she'll zoom in and you can see that there's very definitely yellow on here, but I think if you were to look at highways in your area, you'll see that this probably roughly correlates to what you experience in real life. And again, as we get to the demo, you can ask Krista to zoom in on a specific road and you can see exactly what it's like. But this is the result we've come out with. I'll speak very quickly about SAT to cell because it factors into kind of the rest of our discussion in terms of what's next. But probably everyone in the call has heard the advertisements on TV and whatnot from Rogers, chiefly dealing with their new satellite to cellular service. So really what this is it's using satellites in the sky that actually connect up to modern day cell phones so that you can get coverage outside of the cellular area. Rogers is the first in Canada to offer it. They partnered with Starlink out of the US, and they have coverage across Canada largely below the 59th parallel. So once you get north of the 59th, you're still in a bit of trouble these days, but south of the 59th, sorry, there is service. Currently, they have productized their texting service. They're working on video and voice and data. They'll probably all be live sometime this year in various stages. Our other providers, TELUS and Bell, are working on a somewhat competitive service through a different satellite provider called AST Space Mobile. It's probably still 12 to 18 months away from being commercially available. It'll be a similar service, slight differences in how they offer it, but I think the important thing to note with SAT to cell is it's all what I would refer to as bleeding edge. So it's a brand new service, mostly new technology. It will 100% be an improvement over areas where there's no coverage today. How much of an improvement we'll see over the coming years in terms of how that technology actually works in practice. For sure, on a flat stretch of highway with no mountains around, it's probably going to work really well. As you move into areas that have more topography, especially up against the hill face, things like that, probably not quite as well, but those will be some of the technical kinks that they work out as we go forward. So the reason this is really important in terms of our discussion is while the cellular companies are focused on the satellite products, they are largely stopping any kind of investment in rural cellular. So I probably am not telling you anything you haven't already heard or seen out on the roads out there, but they've actually started to admit it to us, which is a little bit of a new development. So really, we are waiting to see what happens with SAT to cell, largely for rural and remote areas before the cellular companies really realistically look at much more cellular development out there. Urban areas around towns and cities, they're still doing infill and additional cell towers like that. But outside of those areas, it's pretty much just we're going to live with what's there while satellite to cell becomes more developed. And this is a look at what Krista's going to walk you through here in a minute. But this is the platform that her team developed to take the cell drive data and make it consumable by the masses, so to speak, something we can walk you through. And like I said, I'll just quickly go through the rest of my deck quickly. It's only a couple more slides, and then Krista can take you through the demo. So talked a little bit about how we're using the data already. A lot of it is interacting with regional districts and communities across the province to help talk about where they're at from a self perspective and where they still have priority needs that need to be addressed. We've shared the data with our federal partners, part of it through a CRTC consultation they have open, but also we've shared it with the Communications Research Center out of Ottawa because they're looking at how cellular coverage is measured. We've also shared it with the two big providers, Rogers and TELUS, so they're busy going through the data to try and see if there's any areas where the drive study shows them some areas where they expect coverage to be better than it actually is, so they can dive into that. We just had a meeting with TELUS earlier today. We found a section of the Sunshine Coast where there's a bit of a discrepancy there. So they're going to dig into that. We'll dig into our data and make sure that it made sense. But we don't expect it to be a massive uplift in terms of all of a sudden they have towers they're fixing and improving things. But any kind of improvements is a good outcome from this. So the other thing I'll mention is we are also putting the cellular data into a broader mobile study I'll talk about in 2 seconds. So we're still working through the data. I mentioned the mobile CRTC consultation, that's 2026.9 there. It is open now, and this province has submitted a consultation intervention to that already, so there'll be more coming on that. But again, that's more talking about how the cellular coverage is displayed by the carriers when they report on it. And the mobility study, I'll quickly mention before we dive into the demo. So we are working right now on a province-wide mobility study. So this is cellular plus mobile radio. So it's the provincial agencies like ambulance, wildfire, MOTT, and the public first responders. What we're trying to do is gather a database of where all the infrastructure is. So towers and shelters, the power, the backhaul fiber and microwave that connect those towers together, and have a common operating picture view from a provincial perspective of where it is, so that a few different things. One, we can start prioritizing funding and initiatives around areas where there isn't coverage. We can start coordinating funding asks through Treasury boards so that we don't have 3 or 4 different ministries or agencies asking for different pots of money for similar services. So we're really trying to coordinate the mobile landscape across the province as we move forward so that it's a lot more efficient moving forward, and we start addressing areas of priority where we don't have coverage. So, I mean, public safety is the big example here. There's lots of areas across the province where there's ambulances or police cars or fire trucks deploy, and they don't have any kind of radio coverage. So the idea is we're going to identify all that at a provincial level and start working towards ways of solving it, whether it's additional radio towers, using satellite services, cellular, whatever it happens to be. This is kind of the first step towards a provincial view of solving that. I talked a little bit about what's coming out of the study, and then instead of questions, we'll maybe pop over to the demo and let Krista walk through things. Sorry, is there any questions before we jump into the demo?
Anyone have any questions right now? Questions, comments? No,
Easy.
I think we're good here in the room. So if we want to move on to Krista.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
Krista.
Mike, do you want to stop sharing and then
Yeah.
I'll send you the.
I'm trying.
It's okay. There we go.
Okay, good. You got it?
Yeah. All right. How's that looking? Can you guys see my the dashboard up? Thumbs up.
Yes,
Awesome.
Yes, we
Thank
can.
you.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna take you a quick walk through what we've put together here. This dashboard was really set up as just sort of to facilitate conversations internal to our division and within government, and then when we have these sort of sessions with other local government and agencies to kind of share that data. So just a quick overview, and then I'll dive into the TNRD specifically. But you can see we drove, or Mike had alluded to about this 15,000 kilometers that we drove. So we're at 15,147 is sort of what we reported out to. And you can see here, this is the view of the entire province, and you can see that those categories that Mike alluded to being the acceptable, minimal, and no coverage here. So across the province, we're looking at about 38% with no coverage. And I think sort of interest and something that we wanted to pull out here too was sort of where there's those no coverage gaps, like how many of them are greater than 10 kilometers. Now you can, 10 kilometers is even still a lot when you're driving those routes, and in the case of an incident occurring where you wouldn't have service. So obviously we can adjust that number, but it's just looking at how many of those gaps exist across the province and how critical that is. This view allows us to compare sort of region by region and highway by highway and highlight some of those, obviously those highways with longer distances of no coverage, obviously 97 and 37, those highways up north there being kind of as we would expect, the larger routes without coverage. And yeah, there's of interest to us is sort of looking at where there's no coverage but power is available, which would indicate potentially probably a little bit more incentive to for providers to have access to power in order to put in the facilities to set up towers and whatnot to increase the services there. So very quick, I'm just going to dive in now to TNRD. I'll just pull that up and we get a little bit of a closer view. So just takes a second to kind of load here. But this is what it looks like for the regional district. So drove just over 1,600 kilometers of those primary, secondary, and major routes across the regional district. And we're looking at about 28% or 450 kilometers of no coverage at all. And I think that's probably what you're used to seeing when you're out on the roads. I think none of this, as Mike says, had mentioned, would probably be a surprise having, you guys are probably very familiar with driving these routes. So you can see the highways here with the kilometers and how much have no service at all. So a little bit of an overview there, and I'll just pop open the map a little bit more. We can drill down on specific highways here as well. So I'll just give you a second to take a look at that in its in its entirety for interest. But we can look at specific highways. Like I understand, obviously Highway 5 is one of interest, and I think specifically, in this area south of Valemont, I think we're seeing sort of these large swaths of underserved or where there's no cellular coverage here. So that's what Highway 5 looks like. And then another one that I might highlight would be 8. And I'll just give it a second to reset here. We can take a look at that area south of Spencer's Bridge, which you're probably pretty familiar with as well. So we can take a little bit of a closer look there. So I'm going to leave it there. If anyone has any questions or wants to look at a specific area, happy, or we can just go back to answering kind of general questions. I'm happy to kind of leave it there.
Thank you very much. I have Director Beppel and then Director Houghton and Director Sau. Director Beppel.
Thank you, and great presentation. Thanks for that work. In terms of fatalities, Northern Health and Interior Health has the highest per capita death rates on their highways. And we have in Interior Health death rate of 15.2 per 100,000. In Northern Health, it's 18.1. And that's compared to the provincial average of 6.0. Are you going to be including the fatalities? I've heard from, for instance, some directors from the regional district of Fraser Fort George that, the time it takes for somebody to go from an accident to get to a place where they can call 811 can be significant, so that it not only the ambulance and the paramedics, but the person that's first at the accident has to go a great distance just to call for help. Are you going to be looking at the fatality rates on those highways, since they're 2.5 to 3 times higher than the provincial average?
I think that the quick answer from our perspective is those kinds of data points are factored into some of the discussions around prioritization of to where communications funding might end up. Um, I don't know that we are we're not emergency management, so we're not directly engaged in terms of that, but it will factor into where some of the prioritization hits from the funding perspective.
Thank you. Next up, Director Houghton.
Thank you. I was just wondering if possibly you might be able to give me a little bit of an update. I was contacted by one of the land agents, by one of the major cell providers on working with them to possibly get a series of cell towers on the old 5A highway, Kamloops to Merritt down to the Nicola Valley. And I know others in our locality of Knutsford have been contacted by them, and it seems like it's gone quiet now. I haven't heard anything. Is there any updates on what is happening on the 5A corridor to Merritt by anybody, like including one of the major cell providers? Thank you.
Thanks. Chris is going to pull that up just to ground me for a second, but I can tell you without a doubt, there's been no request for funding from the cellular providers for that. That said, there is a transport project going through that corridor by one of the providers that will probably have cellular attached to it once it's complete. They've had numerous delays on it, and we are hoping for completion next year. So that might line up with when they start putting cellular sites along it.
Next, Director Sal.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So I have a few questions. One is that, like you mentioned, the telecoms company don't have any desire to move forward at this point with more cell towers with the SAT to cell technology. So what other improvements would connectivity programs be targeting in light of that? That's my first question. Thank you.
So we are continuing to work with the cell phone companies to identify areas that without coverage that are priorities for communities and the province, so that in the event they do spend money or we do have extra funding to throw at things, we target those areas. So that's kind of the short answer to your question, I think. You said you had a second part?
Okay, yes. So I remember there was a $50 million program to build cell towers. Is that fund going to be diverted to some other program? Because, as again, like you mentioned, the telecoms companies are saying they don't have a desire to build cell towers, or is that $50 million just, sitting there?
So it was actually 75 million. But so yes, that fund is being repurposed as we speak into some other projects. However, there's still an availability in the event that a cellular project does come along.
Okay, thank you. And third question, so in my area, the road rescue and fire departments, they already invested in their own Starlink in light of, there are sections of Highway 5 near Vavenby and Birch Island that has no cell coverage. Is there any possibility of grant funding to reimburse these emergency departments for services like Starlink?
At this point, I haven't heard of anything along those lines. Starlink specifically is a difficult discussion for the province to have politically. But I know that there are constant discussions underway in terms of how to support the first responders. So we don't have anything currently underway in connectivity division, but we do work closely with the emergency management partners in the province. So potentially something could come along.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could pass that message on to your other stakeholders, that'd be great. And lastly, this whole study and, a year of everybody's time stem frame from, you mentioned, there was a lot of he said, she said with the cellular coverage with the telecoms company. Have they given a response in light that now it came out that, their coverage map was inaccurate? Did they give any feedback as to why? Thank you.
Well, the short answer is, in terms of why, is the cellular companies do their mapping that you see on the internet and this mapping they provide to the CRTC. They do it largely through a computer desktop model. So they put parameters into a program and it spits out what the coverage should look like. So as time has gone on, they've gotten better at tweaking those parameters to make it more accurate. So I say the data that we were dealing with when we started the study was 2022 data, and it was largely disconnected from reality. But we actually got an updated data set in, I want to say January. I might be off by a little bit. Krista can correct me, but from the CRTC. So it's based on data that the carriers have submitted to the CRTC since 2022. The new data that's dated, late last year is a lot more real life accurate. So it's largely supporting what our drive study has found. And I think, there's a few factors around that, but the fact that BC, as well as a couple other provinces, did these drive studies to prove that the carrier data was quite inaccurate has forced the providers to improve their desktop studies and find some other methods of gathering data from the cellular services to more accurately reflect the mapping. So they actually pay now for crowdsourced data as well through applications that provide like user experience across the landscape. So their mapping is getting a lot more accurate, I think, is the end answer there.
So what you're saying is that they've been forced to do more accurate mapping, but no one is forcing them to actually follow through on what their mapping is telling them about the crappy service. Okay. Just an observation, not trying to throw stones. Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. How did the information that we provided on our emergency services and communications, how did that factor into your study? Is there anything that we can lever from that information?
And sorry, Krista, do we know what that emergency services information was?
Yeah, so just to confirm, we're talking about the evacuation routes, and Megan, maybe you might be able to confirm that too. I'm assuming
just to be clear, I think we provided information regarding our communications systems for our emergency, for our fire departments and emergency networks. Did we not?
Hi, Mike, Megan Chadwick here. No, we haven't received that information to date. But as Krista is mentioning, we did have a conversation with emergency services, and their primary interest at this time that they expressed was around looking at the evacuation routes that they're doing planning for within the TNRD. So we have been supporting them in that regard.
And I guess my second question is if everybody's kind of coming to a halt with their deployment of cell towers, is the province looking at the possibility of forcing the communicator, the TELUS and Rogers, to open up their optical network transfer boxes wherever there's a transport along a public highway using BC Hydro poles, so that at least the rural people living along that area can tap into the public transport? Is that's something that they do in Australia? I'm wondering if they do it here, or if you're considering it.
Well, so specifically to that, telecommunications regulation is a federal thing in Canada. So the province can lobby for things, but we can't actually make the decisions on it. That said, I don't see that being something that happens anytime soon, just given the expense of breaking into long haul fiber. You're probably talking a few $100,000 every time you break into it, and that's probably not realistically going to happen. But I think we're always in discussion with the carriers in terms of how we can improve things. I know, Mike, that's a bit of a rainbow statement, but it's true. We are constantly trying to talk to them about improving things, and
I would just point out that
yeah, go ahead.
they need to hang their fiber along BC Hydro poles for the most part. So if the province, not waiting for CRTC, said, okay, the deal is you want to hang your fiber on our poles, you got to open up access. That might be an approach to consider.
It could be. So right now, the CRTC does mandate that the carriers have to open up their fiber within communities. That part is there, or at least their transport network within communities. So if there's a competitive provider in a community, they have the ability to buy transport through the incumbent. I guess there's a potential down the road that maybe they could break in along the fiber. But I have not heard that mentioned any time in the past.
Next, I have Director Thorpe, then Director Smith, then Vice Chair Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for pointing out Highway 8 down in Area I. If you could bring that map up a little bit and go down sort of in the southwestern corner there and take a look at Highway 12 and Highway 1. Now, there is nothing, if you go down into Lytton, you'll probably see it. You'll note Highway 12, it's almost entirely red until you get to just out of Lillooet, from about 6 miles out of Lytton. That area, we do have a small independent provider that has been trying to do something in that area, and it has been extremely difficult. They're also trying to go from Lytton down to Boston Bar, and there is a section in there that, again, there's no cell coverage. They've hit a few challenges. One is with Minister of Transport trying to go underground, given the number of fires that we have had in that region. The other one is if they're small independent provider, in order to hang their fiber and to do what they need to do, they need to rent off of an existing pole. In theory, say TELUS. Is there anything being done to help these small independents, nonprofit, to try and increase cellular in the area? I've got Highway 12, I've got Highway 1, I've got Highway 8, I've got Highway 99 up by 97, and I've got 97C, all without cell phone coverage. Just asking.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're referring to LitNet there, who we're well familiar with. So we are trying to support smaller ISPs like that in terms of the broadband last mile projects, where things are a little bit more difficult from a cellular perspective is they would also have to get access to the spectrum, the frequencies for offering cellular service, and want to offer cellular service. So a cellular tower these days is probably $3 to $5 million per site. And that's really hard for a small provider to capitalize and support. So that's kind of the cellular piece. With regards to the poles, typically those poles have almost dual ownership across BC, with the exception of the Fortis area. Hydro owns most of the pole, and TELUS owns another chunk. And there's space associated on each pole for telecom access, it's called. And that is also regulated by the CRTC. So there's actually a price per pole that is put in place for each pole by the CRTC. And they actually just recently updated that about a year and a bit ago. So that price is set, and it's probably going to be set at that state for quite a while. What often makes the pole work more expensive is the make ready cost on the poles. So as they hang more things on the poles, they sometimes have to replace them so that it has the strength to hold multiple cables, etc. We do have a program going with Hydro to help make those make ready costs taken care of outside of a provider having to do it. So we do have a program with Hydro that's being pretty successful across the province.
Thank you, Director Smith.
Thank you, Chair. This is a connectivity question or comment that I'd like to make to Megan. You and I talked about 3.5 years ago about connectivity fiber optic around the 70 Mile House Green Lake area. And I'm extremely happy to tell you that as I sit here today, is being installed. So yours and my credibility has gone up a great deal. Thank you.
That's wonderful to hear, Director Smith. I'm glad to see you again.
Vice Chair Smith.
Director Smith, that gives me hope. The District of Logan Lake has been trying to establish that the mapping that was done quite some time ago wasn't accurate, to the point that we actually had an independent study done to show what the actual what it was in Logan Lake. We've had commitments in words to us a number of times, and we've gone right to the point of signing an access agreement to allow access for the services to be put in. But I'm just wondering if you happen to have any update for Logan Lake, where we are at in terms of having fiber coming to our community, which was promised for spring of this year in the last time that we had a conversation about this. I realize you may or may not have an update, but I'd love it if you did. Thank you.
And I'm going to assume it's a universal answer here. I don't have that already off the top of my head, but that's something we can certainly get back to you on.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll just throw in a little historical tidbit here. Ashcroft Journal, 1926, reporting on the opening, soon to be open Caribou Highway. Very exciting. Restoring the highway link between the Lower Mainland and the interior of BC that had been severed with the Alexandra Bridge being washed out in 1894. Someone wrote to the paper and said that one of the drawbacks of inviting tourists to drive the Fraser Canyon Highway was the lack of telephone service in the event of an emergency. And the writer was somewhat facetious. He said that, I'm quoting from memory, if a touring car with 7 tourists went over into the river at Hell's Gate, providing there was a survivor, that person would probably want to be able to contact a coroner or an undertaker or possibly a doctor. He proposed that there be a telephone booth every 5 miles. This is in 1926. So 100 years ago, and I mean, I know he was being rather tongue-in-cheek and could have had no idea of cellular coverage. 100 years ago, that corridor was identified as being a problem for communications for travelers who got into difficulties. And 100 years later, with our modern technology, we are still struggling with how to answer that question. Simply pointing that out. If you forget history, you are indeed doomed to repeat it. All right, well, thank you very much for that presentation. I'm sure we will see you again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And the third of our 3 delegations, Ministry of Forests. We have a presentation on forest landscape plans from Ministry of Forests Strategic Initiatives Resource Manager David Lishman. Mr. Lishman, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Oh, sorry. More used to Teams in the Ministry of Forests world, so I appreciate the the few seconds. What about now?
We can see it now.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much for having me. Sorry I can't make it there in person. I appreciate the opportunity to be virtual. Yeah, my name is David Lishman. I work for the Ministry of Forests for the Thompson-Okanagan region as a resource manager, focused mostly on forest landscape planning and a few other initiatives. So wanted to come here today to talk to you about forest landscape planning within the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. And essentially there's two forest landscape plans that we've started that I want to speak to specifically. So I have a few slides focusing a bit on forest landscape planning overview. What is it? Why is the Ministry of Forests looking to do it? And then talking obviously about the planning area, where we're doing it, and then moving towards public engagement. And so hopefully that will answer a few questions to start, but totally realizing we don't have a ton of time and that there'll probably be questions and more follow-up probably required. So what are forest landscape plans? So for those that don't know, currently BC timber sales and forest licensees use what we call a forest stewardship plan to outline how they're going to conduct activities on the land base. And so forest landscape plans are a new mechanism, new legal mechanism to replace these forest stewardship plans. And I will talk about the why in a bit of why we're moving towards this. But the idea is that these forest landscape plans become a co-developed government-to-government plan with input from public, forest licensees, and interested parties throughout the forest landscape plan area, with the idea to guide forest management activities for BC timber sales and forest licensees on the land base. So really kind of outlining how these activities will operate on the land base. And they're designed to be a 10-year plan with ongoing monitoring to evaluate the plan achievement and performance. With BC being legislated through their own legislation to report out every 5 years on how we're meeting the outcomes that are outlined within the forest landscape plan. So why did we move towards forest landscape plans? So a big leading towards co-management with First Nations, as I said before, these plans are working kind of developed at a G to G level, obviously with a lot of input from other folks. That leads into, there's been significant changes in societal values and expectations on the forest and on the land base since the last 20 years when forest stewardship plans were starting to be written. And so it's recognized that we needed to figure out a better way that the public and interested parties could provide information early in the process, early in the planning process, so we can get better results on the ground. Also, another one of the major reasons is there's significant landscape level issues that we see in the forest. So climate change, cumulative impacts, timber supply challenges, and increasing disturbances on the land, risk to water. Listen to that or the drought presentation earlier. So very important part of this work as well. And then there's also numerous stewardship initiatives and projects on the ground. And so we have a lot of great work happening on the ground, but the hope is that through the forest landscape planning projects, we're going to be able to help identify the areas that potentially we should be focusing on for stewardship and restoration projects as well. And then there's also been a need for increased certainty for the forest sector. So by having the forest landscape planning project where we can bring everyone together at the planning stage, we're hoping that at the outcome of a forest landscape plan, we will get that increased certainty to outline clearly to forest companies where harvesting can happen and what practices we want to see on the land base. So at a high level, the legislation was updated about 4 years ago to enable forest landscape planning to happen. And through that legislation, there were 5 objectives outlined. They're not in order, but at the end of the FLP process, we have to outline how we've met each one of these 5 objectives. And so we have supporting the protection and conservation of the environment, managing values placed on forest ecosystems by Indigenous peoples, managing values placed on forest ecosystems by local communities, prevent, mitigate, and adapt to impacts of significant disturbance to forest and forest health, include wildfire, insect, disease, and drought, and then supporting the production and supply of timber within the FLP area. So again, these aren't in order. Part of the work that we have to do is figure out what this kind of means to us in the FLP area. And a lot of the discussions with First Nation communities up to this date have really focused on that water, community resilience, and biodiversity. So a lot of kind of what I heard today being kind of the focus on how we want to move forward. So throughout the province, there's been a number of forest landscape plans in either starting up or have been started a few years ago. So the province started with 4 pilots, one in Quesnel, one around Burns Lake, one on the Sunshine Coast, and one on the North Vancouver Island. So really just to kind of work through it and see if this was something that was feasible and what can we learn from that. And so because of the progress and how those were doing, the province moved to start up 10 new forest landscape plans within the province. And these ones are just kind of starting up, and same with the ones that I'm going to talk about. But you can see on the map, the dark green are the pilots, the light green are the newish projects. And so the ones I want to speak to you today are both within our Thompson-Okanagan region. One is called the Thompson River Watersheds FLP, or Forest Landscape Plan, sorry, and the other is called the Temuk-Neshkeen Forest Landscape Plan. And I'm just going to jump forward to a bit more of a detailed map, and I think you have this probably in your note package as well, but we wanted to show the overlap between the 2 projects and the Thompson-Nicola Regional District boundary. So you can see there's a significant overlap between the 2 boundaries, and there are, again, 2 projects. So the Thompson River Watersheds FLP project encompasses, as you'd expect, a large portion of the Thompson River watersheds, kind of from the Nicola watershed north up into the North Thompson, and then also goes east out of your boundary into the Shuswap Lake drainages, so the South Thompson watershed drainages. And then the Temuk-Neshkeen FLP project starts essentially at the Nicola watershed and moves south all the way to the US border, encompassing a large portion of obviously the Nicola watersheds and the Similkameen River watersheds. So they're pretty large areas. We've been working closely over the past little bit with First Nation communities throughout the FLP areas. And so the Temuk-Neshkeen Forest Landscape Plan, we've been working with 13 partnering First Nations from the Uncleklappan, the Syilx, and Secwepemc nations that have territory that overlaps with the FLP plan process. So the last little bit of work has been really kind of focused on how do we want to set up these FLPs, plan area, and governance, and working working together to really set up how to work government to government. And now we're moving into a situation where we're wanted to be public and start outreach to obviously the public and regional districts and municipalities and all this. So this is one of the first steps here, and you're actually the first regional district I've talked to. So I appreciate getting to test drive this with you. And so the name Temuk-Neshkeen is a Syilx from the Uncleklappan and Syilx language, and it essentially means the land and all living things and one voice. So really focusing on that unity, respect, and shared responsibility for the land and all living things. And then the Thompson River Watershed FLP, so the one further north, we're working collaboratively with 17 partnering First Nations from the Secwepemc, the Syilx, the Uncleklappan, and St'át'imc nations. And I know a lot of you probably work very closely with these communities as well. And so it's been a really great process up to now with a lot of with all the communities that we hoped would want to be part of the FLP have been part of this FLP up until this point. So I talked a bit about phases and where we're at, and so FLP is broken into essentially 5 phases. They're very similar planning phases as what you would see in other processes, but a lot of the work that I was talking about is at that pre-planning stage. So the exploring the scope, interests, the FLP area, working on a work plan, terms of reference, and again, that how are we going to work together between governments. And so we've been moving into the values identification and assessment. And so that really focuses on engaging with others that are going to be affected by this plan. And so this is kind of one of the first steps of this, and I'll get a bit more into public engagement on what we're proposing, but also really to take a good look at the current condition of the land base, where we have that information, and then look to confirm the values and vision on what we want to manage through FLP. And that's a really big focus on what we're trying to do next is reach out to the public, First Nation communities, interested parties, really to nail down those values they want to see. And then we move into a plan development, and that's the actual developing what we call outcomes and planning guidelines that really are that guidance to forestry on the land base. And then the plan is established by the BC government as a FLP order, making it legal and kind of the legal framework for forestry in the area. And then the implementation and monitoring is key to this adaptive management process. So like I said, we have to monitor our process and complete five-year public reporting reports. And a big part of this work also is if we're determining how forestry needs to happen in the FLP area, we also need to take a look at how much is coming out of that area. So the annual allowable cut work is also a key component of this process as we get near the end of it. So like I said, we're moving into public engagement, and our purpose is to, one, identify how local residents, users, interested parties connect to the Thompson River and to Nuknashkeen planning areas, identify which values, forest values matter most to them, and which concerns should help inform future forest landscape plan development, and also to get the word out so people know that this work is happening, and to help answer any questions about forest landscape planning they may have. And so the way we're looking to do this is through open houses and online surveys in order to start this kind of initial phase. There will be additional touch points throughout the FLP, and we're hoping this initial phase will help kind of outline how people want to be connected to it. So I'm going to get a bit into the open houses, but each project has their own website. There's links there. They don't work great on a slideshow, but if you do just go BC Forest Landscape Planning, it will take you to the main website that had that map, and you can click on any of the projects. There are multiple projects throughout the province, but it will take you to our project, which will have background information and the survey that we're helping to get out. And then we're also have a outreach through Engage BC that will link to our survey and also our open house locations. And so we're looking to do open houses essentially the May 25th to June 12th. So 3-week period. We're trying to do quite a few open houses. I wanted to kind of be specific to the locations within or near TNRD. So we have Ashcroft, Kamloops, Barrier, Clearwater, Chase, and Merritt. And then there's additional, open houses outside the Vernon, Princeton, Kermias, in Vernon, Princeton, Kermias, and Salmon Arm. And so the venues and timing, we're working on all that background information right now. But that will be posted on our link, and then we'll also be doing outreach and advertisement to get the word out about the open houses and the survey in order to hopefully get as much feedback as we possibly can. And then we're hoping, and also if there's better ideas on how to get the word out, I'm all ears for sure. And so we're working with our government communications and public engagement branch. But obviously, if you know of better ways, I'm all ears. So I do realize that's a very quick overview. I think I had 10 minutes, so I tried to jam a lot of information into that. But yeah, I'm open for questions, concerns, comments for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Any questions? And we have your contact information in case anyone wants to follow up after the meeting to you directly, or we'll be able to get
Yes.
contact. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yes,
Being
of
told
course.
that-
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm being told that we will be supplied with that information.
Okay,
All right. Well, thank
awesome.
you very much for presenting today.
No problem. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we are just going to push right on through. Question 8, unfinished business. I do not believe we have any unfinished business. 9, question period. Are there any questions from members of the public? I don't think there are any in the gallery. Are there any questions from online Zoom land? No? All right, we move on to 10.1, zoning amendment bylaw number 2903. This concerns, okay, Director Ranter moves the recommendation. All right, seconded by Director Kerslake. Director Sau, were you going to recuse yourself from this decision?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
I have a note here that says that, so. Corporate
Sorry,
Officer
Chair,
Jeremiah.
Director Sau needs to stipulate what, or mention why he
Oh, right.
needs to recuse himself. Thank you.
Yes, I'm recusing myself because of the issue within my electoral area.
This is the Birch Island, Noble Road?
Yes, that's because of my relationship with the applicants and the proponents. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do have a recommendation before us. Oh, it has been moved and seconded. Apologies, everyone. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed,
Aye.
if any? That is carried. Well, I hope Director Sau did not go far. Move on to item 10.2, TNRD Search and Rescue Service Establishment Bylaw number 2909. We do have two recommendations.
Move the recommendation 1 and 2.
I think we have to do one at a time, correct? Thank you.
Okay,
so-
move recommendation 1 then.
Director Middleton moves and Director Morris seconds it. This is recommendation 1. Is there any discussion? Questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, if any? That's carried. Director Stanky, I saw you had your hand up. Did you for that one? No. Okay, Director Newstater, I saw your hand up. So you're moving recommendation 2, seconded by Director Thorpe. Any discussion on recommendation 2? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, if any? That is carried. Item 10.3, electoral areas J and M Fire Protection Service Area. We have 4 separate recommendations. Director Laird moves recommendation 1, seconded by Director Aranta. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Recommendation 2, Director Smith, seconded by Director Thorpe. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Recommendation 3. Director Grenier, seconded by Director Ranta. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's carried. And recommendation 4. Director Middleton, thank you. Seconded by Director Hall. Discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. 11.1, temporary use permit number TUP 83, Myrtle Road in beautiful Blue River. Director Onslow. Okay. So that is moved and seconded by Directors Onslow and Ranta. Is there any discussion on this TUP? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. TUP number 85 in electoral area N. Director Thorpe is moving that, seconded by Director Graham. Thank you. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, if any? That is carried. TUP number 88 in electoral area P. Oh, well, Director Morris, moving the recommendation. Director Middleton is seconding that. Is there any discussion on this item, short-term rental? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, if any? That is carried. 11.4, Agricultural Land Commission in electoral area M. Thank you, Director Laird, seconded by Director Ranta. Discussion on this item. All those in favor? Opposed, if
Aye.
any? That is carried. Thank you. Reports. We have CAO Hildebrand's verbal report.
Thank you, Chair Roden. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to bring some energy back to the room. The annual report, the project is now complete, and copy of the annual report is in each of your blue folders. It's a comprehensive 36-page, 8,500-word document that contains a lot of interesting metrics. The short summaries have a lot of key information and tons of great photography and graphic design features. Communications will be sharing key highlights from the annual report on social media over the coming weeks in bite-sized updates so that we can continue to share that with the public. So thanks to Colton and to Mike and everybody that was contributing to this this great report, and it looks great. Number 2, I'm going to just give a quick update on the Pritchard water main break. You may have seen that in the media recently, and as you may be aware, we experienced a significant water main break in the Pritchard community water system, which took place at the start of this month. Our utilities crews worked diligently over April 1st and 2nd to repair the leak. Unfortunately, this complex repair meant that the water service had to be turned off to approximately 36 properties, and the water remained off overnight. Bottled water was provided to all affected households due to the duration of the outage. I'm pleased to report that the emergency repairs were completed within 36 hours. However, there was one property that required additional work. And to ensure that they were not left without water, they were connected through a temporary supply from a neighbor's connection until the final repairs can be complete. While staff shortages certainly delayed the completion of the final service line, I can confirm that this was resolved earlier this week, and permanent water service is now on and fully restored. And we sincerely apologize for any inconvenience that we've caused. The 2 properties sharing the water connection over the 12 days will not be billed for water, of course, during that period. Number 3, Emergency Preparedness Week, May 3rd to 9th. Given the time of year, it's time to turn our minds to flood and wildfire season. Tomorrow at the Committee of the Whole meeting, we will be getting updates on the season ahead from BC Wildfire Service, the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, and the TNRD's Emergency Operations Team. Our EOC staff have plans in place from now until the end of the fall to ensure we are ready to respond whatever comes our way. While you'll be receiving a full report tomorrow, I wanted to highlight just a few preparedness activities that have already been occurring over the last short while. Firstly, earlier this week, we hosted an Emergency Operations Center course through the Justice Institute of BC here at the Civic Building, which included staff from TNRD, Nisconlis First Nation, CSRD, and other municipalities. Also earlier this week, TNRD took part in a debrief of the CPKC train derailment near Tobiano, which was a good conversation. Last week, several TNRD staff attended the annual Wildfire Resiliency and Training Summit in Victoria to learn from experts from around the world on wildfire management topics. In March, TNRD staff delivered 2 days of emergency management training and exercises to the village of Clinton and High Bar First Nation. This coming weekend, Kamloops is hosting the Emergency Support Services Conference at TRU, bringing together volunteers from and staff from around the province, including many from the TNRD communities. And then finally, TNRD's GIS department has put in significant work to update our what we call our common operating picture. It's a mapping program that we use with our EOC team, which is a critical tool in decision-making during emergencies. And while there have already been a few wildfires in the region, none have yet, knock on wood, posed a threat to communities or infrastructure. And just a few more here. MP, Member of Parliament Caputo had an economic advisory meeting recently. Staff were invited to participate in an economic advisory table with Kamloops Thompson-Nicola MP Frank Caputo. Staff were happy to share the importance of our film commission, as well as TNRD's priorities for advocacy, both provincially and federally, and the need for more infrastructure dollars. The fifth topic was on our upcoming advocacy tour. I'm happy to share our first meeting of 4 has been officially confirmed with Ministers Boyle and Anderson, as well as the Parliamentary Secretary for Finance, to discuss small water utility systems funding. As part of our tour, we have invited Director Grenier as chair of the Utility Systems Committee to help better advocate for the need around sustainable and long-term funding around this important service. And we look forward to our upcoming May visit to Victoria. And then finally, we have a few HR updates that we typically do on an annual basis just to provide some metrics from 2025. And I'd ask Ms. Benedarietta to just walk us through a few of those highlights.
Good afternoon. At the risk of one too many presentations, I know Terry is coming after me, which is the more exciting of us two, I promise. So I will go quick in lieu of that. Every year we share just a few updates on our TNRD people metrics and accomplishments. So I'll quickly go through, my remote's not working. I'm going to pass the mouse. Some of the same demographics that we've done in past. All good, thank you. And I won't spend too much time on them, but I'll just highlight a few things. And then at the end, if you guys have any questions, you have an opportunity to ask. So we share our staff numbers. So in terms of regular employees at the TNRD, we have 216 employees. You can see here, this is showing a ratio of which employees belong kind of in which employment group. So the orange is our BCGEU employees, which comprise of our library and IT services staff at about 118, or just over half of our employees. And then our non-union group, we have 19% or 40 people. And our KEPE staff, we have 27% or 58 people. So just keeping steady in those proportions, which is nice to watch, that we're not seeing growth in one group over another group. It's kind of working in line of growth with our services. We can't forget, in addition to these staff numbers, we have our paid on-call fire departments, which I'll mention a little bit later on as well. We have just over 200 paid on-call firefighter members as well. So when we think about services that we're providing for TNRD staff, it's about 450 staff members plus the board and elected members. So we're up almost 500 in terms of headcount for people we serve. We watched the average age, less so accomplishment wise, but making sure that we're not nearing a bubble of retirement risk and information and knowledge loss. So we kind of track it year over year. We're trending slightly younger in terms of our age, and the average age actually has remained largely unchanged around 47, 46 years of age. So kind of a good number there for us. Recruitments, we continue to be actively recruiting people. The total number of recruitments you can see steadily increasing year over year with some fluctuations. The significant portion of these recruitments is internal movement within our BCGEU library staff member group. A lot of those positions are part-time. It makes it advantageous for people to switch jobs. So they change part-time roles and schedules by applying for new positions, which creates that kind of churn in the system of posting work. When we look at staff turnover in terms of people exiting the organization, you can see we're decreased this past year in 2025 to about 13%, which is really on par with a normal or expected rate. We had a blip last year in 2024, especially in our BCGEU group, that orange group, and the significant change we experienced in 2024, which led to an increase in turnover, was opening on Sundays in our main library branch here in Kamloops. And unfortunately, it just didn't work for some staff members as well, which led to that increase in turnover. So we're glad to see it settle out and continue at a normal rate. We've continued to do exit interviews whenever folks leave the TNRD. This has been in place now for about 4 years. And generally the feedback is really positive. So this year we had 80% of people saying that they would consider working for TNRD in the future. And there was more folks that said they would recommend TNRD as a great place to work to their friends and family. Out of the 6 people that answered, we had less completion this year of the survey, but 5 people left the TNRD for attending school or their term of their positions had come to a natural end. And only 1 was because they were offered an alternate position somewhere else. So kind of good to see we're not having people leave that are upset or angry. They're providing positive feedback and reviews for us. One small measure of safety and wellness that we've looked at year over year is absenteeism. So you can see here, we're still sitting around average in 2025 with 3.8% absenteeism. Again, a slight increase in our BCGEU or the orange data numbers there on the left. And that is largely because our BCGEU staff are providing that front-facing service to the public. So there is not a lot of alternatives when they are sick. They call in sick, they can't come to work. We have more flexibility with a lot of our other QP and non-union positions where people can work from home, people can work remotely, which leads to an ability just to get more things done and less absenteeism. So we're continuing to support that BCGEU group and developing attendance management programs and different things to support the managers there too. This is kind of an ongoing joke for the folks who might remember in years past, safety and wellness in Colton's office. He sits in front of the hallway where we have 3 hallways converging into one. And it is a daily incidence of people crashing into each other. You can see we've here hit a record high of 11 days without an accident in the hallway. And that's even with the installation of the mirror, which we should be all looking at, but we're all walking with our phones in our hands and not looking up at the mirror. So we still crash into each other.
It's because you put a fridge right underneath the mirror.
Yeah, there's also a new fridge there. So it's a really frequent intersection. And just to highlight our paid on-call firefighters again, this year we maintained over 200 members. We have 212 sitting in the community serving our communities. So really proud to have them. Over the course of the year, we issued a number of long service awards and we acknowledge retirement programs too for the on-call firefighters. So just a shout out to the work they do in our communities every day supporting people. Taking just a step away from demographics and more so looking at our relationships with the unions, one measure that we can use is the number of grievances. So you can see here since 2021, we have had less than 5 grievances per year. And in 2025, we only have 1 outstanding grievance. The remainder were withdrawn by the union or jointly settled. And as have most of them over the last kind of 10 years have been withdrawn by the union or jointly settled, which I think is indicative of a healthy conflict resolution process in place with our union and labor groups. Staff development funding, we look at this one year over year just to make sure we're on par. Really impacted, you can see in 21, 2022 from COVID. A lot of the professional development, networking, conferencing events were canceled. So you've seen a dip in the spending because people were not going to anywhere. There was nowhere to go. But we're kind of averaging out now around that 109 mark, which is where we were in 2019 pre-COVID. So I think that's a healthy spot for us to be given our size. I wanted to highlight a few of the accomplishments we've had as a TNRD team, especially in regards to our people leadership over the last year. Our human resources group offered and facilitated a series of 6 different leadership courses for all our management staff to attend, just to help engage on best leadership practices in coaching and development. We also had our senior management team undertake a 360-degree review process led alongside CIO and our human resources team, provided a lot of good information for us. as individuals in terms of leadership and for our staff, and all contributed kind of to a better culture of engagement and growth and support across the TNRD. We continue to focus on our safety program, emphasizing, especially over the last year within our departments, the work on risk assessments, emergency response plans. And this is a small one, but it was a cost-saving measure, so I thought I'd highlight it. We have a material safety data sheet inventory system that we transitioned from an American-based, more expensive company to a local Canadian company that saved us a bit of money. So a bit of a safety project, small, but good impact there. And that's, I think, what I wanted to highlight from an HR lens and say that I'm really excited and proud to be here at the TNRD with this great group of people. So I'll leave it there if you guys have any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Tap. No? All right, thank you very much. And next up, we have a presentation from Film Commissioner Hadwin.
Thanks. I don't know how much more interesting my presentation is going to be. I think Amanda had some pretty great stats there to share. So, but I'll carry on with some of the highlights of 2025. Here's our mission statement. Basically, it says that we exist for the purpose of attracting film productions into our area and to try to stimulate growth from within. Our small but mighty team, 2.5 of us, myself, Katie, and Vesta. And we are one of 7 regional film commissions underneath the umbrella of the British Columbia Film Commission. So here are some fun statistics of stats of numbers that we had with film production specifically in British Columbia. So in 2024, it's estimated that there was a value of about $3.1 billion worth of injection of an economic driver directly related to the motion picture industry. I just made the bottom one just a little bit bigger just because of how tiny the top one is there. And here specifically within our regional district, we had a input of $12.5 million that was related to film productions coming into the area. And we had 95 film project inquiries, which is over 27% above and beyond what we had the year before. So we are definitely showing a recovery from those 2023 strikes, which is lovely to see. 28 film projects actually filmed within our area, so about 1/3. I'm pretty proud of those stats, and that's up over 100% over 2024. So we're definitely we're doing well. We're doing really, really well. And I'd have to say in these last 6 weeks, we've been busier than we've ever been. We've had large productions coming into the area. And of course, that has all had to happen while Katie was on vacation. How dare she? So I'm definitely playing a lot of catch up. And so if I haven't been replying to some of your emails, I promise you I will, just not right now. So some of our celebrations that we had from last year, the last episode of Untamed, which is on Netflix with Eric Bana, that was partially filmed within the TNRD. I guess it's not a big secret anymore. The Last of Us, we had the first episode of season 2 filmed in Kamloops. And everybody knew about it, but I couldn't talk about it. So now I can, so I'm happy. Some other projects that we had filming in the region, we had Underdog Inc., Travels with Agatha Christie. You can see a lot of footage around the Lytton area while they're traveling on the Rocky Mountaineer. 13th Wife was a 2-part miniseries that aired on Lifetime, and that was filmed in Ashcroft. And here's a few of the smaller productions that we had. Mad Dogs, you can find on YouTube. Hoop Nations, one of the episodes was filmed in Kamloops. Wildfire, filmed a lot in the Merritt area, as well as a few other areas in the region. And Moon's Wife wasn't filmed in our area, but I really wanted to bring some attention to this project. It was one of the Crazy Eights films, and it was made by an up-and-coming filmmaker that lives within our area. Her name is Amanda Wandler, and she's just been doing amazing things, getting a lot of grants and making some pretty great things. So I just wanted to share that one, even though it wasn't filmed in our area, still something to celebrate. It stars Grace Dove, the Secwepemc actress. Here's a big one. My Secret Santa, 100% filmed in the TNRD. It was #1 on Netflix for a week or two. 41.7 million views for that project. It was filmed in Kamloops and in Sun Peaks. It actually named Sun Peaks by name. So that was really excellent to see. I guess it was trending on Google for a little bit. Is Sun Peaks Resort an actual place? Their wedding venue inquiries actually went up. So that was really a big win for our area. And I'd love to see more of those. So we had a few projects that were also filmed in the area that I can't quite talk about yet, but I will when I can. So if you're saying, well, hey, you didn't mention this one, I will once the projects have actually been released. So some of our project accomplishments, we are 100% on track or ahead of schedule with everything that has been laid out within our department's strategic plan. No big deal. I think that's pretty rad, actually. And then you'll notice in your folders that we have brought out a print document. It had been something that had been requested by quite a few of our directors of beautiful imagery to share with folks. So we did go ahead and we printed a limited quantity of those. If you would like more because you want to share them in your community, or if you have people that you think might be interested in seeing these beautiful booklets, please let me know. There is also digital versions available online, and if you're wanting to see those, I can share those with you. I am so stoked that I got to go to primetime this year in Ottawa. The energy was just wild, and just celebrating Canadian cinema and what we're doing in the global scale. Heated Rivalry is one of the top consumed television shows on the planet, and it was all Canadian content, and Hudson Williams grew up in Kamloops. And as you can see, he's very close to the Prime Minister, so it's a good relationship to build upon. And we've also been doing a few other digital as well as print advertising. Another no big deal, being mentioned as one of the top places to live and work as a movie maker for the 4th year in a row. Some of our local ways that we're trying to facilitate growth. Every 3rd Sunday, we have the Film Industry Networking event. So if you're wanting to come and see what that's all about, you can come and visit me on Sunday. I'll be at the Paramount Theatre from 4 to 6. And every month we have a different topic that we bring to the table. We bring in guest speakers so that, we're listening to voices and opinions and skills from outside of our area. We also have local people that provide input as well. And we do this so that we don't just sit around and gossip all day, and we have something to steer and guide the conversation. But this is something that we're very happy to bring to our community and to offer here locally, so that people feel that they don't always have to travel outside of the region to be a part of these sorts of conversations. Which is very similar to the Learn About Film seminar, which is a 2-day, very immersive seminar that we host with partnership with the Kamloops Film Society. What our focuses are on this year is I'm really going to be trying to incorporate similar policies throughout all of the various communities that we have within the TNRD. Obviously, everybody will have their own individual thoughts on what their policies should look like, and that's okay, but trying to make them as similar as possible. So when a film production that is based in LA or based in Vancouver, based in Toronto comes into our region, they're not getting different messaging on every single different community that they go to. Definitely going to be still focusing on trying to garner interest from investors to build that motion picture studio in the area. And I will be continuing on with the familiarization tours and taking producers and location managers to various different gem locations that we have so that they're aware and so that it's top of mind. And these are the various different ways that you can stay connected with us on all of our social media channels. You can subscribe to our e-newsletter, and you can get lost on our website for at least a couple of hours. And that's the end of my presentation. That's our highlights from 2025.
Any truth to the rumors that Ryan Gosling's going to be in the area anytime? Doing anything?
Doing anything. I've heard that he's got a maple donut thing going on, but
Yeah.
can't speak to that, no.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for your great work on behalf of our beautiful region. Certainly have a lot to offer to filmmakers, I think. Come here and you can pretend that you're any place in the world within a few miles of each other, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Director Sao and Director Stanky?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Terry. Just out of curiosity, for the Secret Santa being 100% TNRD project, like how does something become 100% like that? Like, is there any specific like key to bringing the production 100% here that we could add more funding to help?
A lot of it is case specific and script specific. So in this case, they definitely needed a ski resort. The story is based on a youth that takes snowboarding lessons, and the mom has to put her through snowboarding lessons. So she basically is dressed up in drag as Santa. So it was very much geared around the Sun Peaks Resort. And then anything that Sun Peaks didn't have, thankfully Kamloops did. So they were able to 100% garner all of their location needs that were within that script to the area. If there's things that we don't have, like for example, I have been approached to play downtown New York Metropolis, and I thought I was being punked that day because no, we don't have downtown New York, maybe some areas, but not the skyscrapers that they're looking for. It is always usually script dependent and definitely seasonal. Being able to offer a studio would allow us to entice that much more, because then they could bring some of the stuff that they're needing to accomplish inside of a building. You're welcome.
Thank you, Director Stanky.
Well, thank you, Terry. I always look forward to your presentations. I find them quite informative. And thank you for coming up to Clinton a couple of weeks ago and taking a crew around, even though it's on one side of the Edge Hills there, well, there's still a lot of snow. Back roads weren't marked all that well, and I'm glad you didn't get that crew lost that you brought up there.
We might have gotten lost on a different road, but it was a happy getting lost. We discovered some things that we didn't know about. So it's always good to take those side roads.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Film Commissioner? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If anyone spots Ryan Gosling, just let me, you all have my email. Okay, we move on to no shade to the RDOS, but the much less interesting topic of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen's regional growth strategy. We do have 2 recommendations.
Move one.
Vice Chair Smith, seconded by Director Thorpe. Thank you. That's recommendation number 1. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's carried. Recommendation 2.
Move to.
Director Middleton, thank you. Seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Contract awards, civic building roof upgrade. We do have 1 linked recommendation.
So move.
Okay, moved by Director Newstater, seconded by Director Houghton. Any discussion on this item? She just got her hand up that. She got her hand up that fraction of a second quicker. Who had their hand up? Director Grenier.
I'd just like to thank Director Laird for making this possible. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for your generous transfer of funds from your funding to this, for this project, for this building that we, and so many other people enjoy as well through the library. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's carried. We have the building permit activity highlights. Anyone have anything there they want to talk about? Didn't think so. All right. Move on to committees. We have the draft minutes of the March 25th Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting. We don't have any resolutions arising out of that, but did anyone have any questions or comments? All right, we do have correspondence. We have one action item. That is a request for a letter of support for the 70 Mile Community Hall. Director Smith, would you like to make that motion?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the board support sending this letter. It's kind of a continuation of a lot of work that's being done in that hall. And there's actually a complete new executive there now, and they've kind of got a rejuvenated sense of purpose. So it's a very worthwhile project, and it's strictly just a letter of support. Thank you.
Okay, it's moved by Director Smith, seconded by Vice Chair Smith. Certainly in with my other hat on, I see a lot of things going on at the 70 Mile Community Hall. They have a pancake breakfast on the first Saturday of the month. They have markets and fairs and community events of all kinds. So very well used building, and I know it's much loved in that area. All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's carried. All right, do we have any items of new business? No, no hands in the air. Director Blackwell is silent. And we do not have any notices of motion, of which I am aware anyway. So with that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you.